a lot of my work has gone into this. Because I've researched these people, I look at the names now and for example, John Wink was 82. He was a farm labourer and he'd worked all of his life in Stowmarket and Stowmarket.
A bunch of us old boys got together and they knew somebody else and they joined us. People from over the new houses over top, 2 people there joined us, and we're now a working little team. Our total age is 778, but that is, the average age is 78 each. We've got 5 over 80. We meet once a fortnight on a Friday, and we have a big cake rota. That's very important.
A little way away down that way, there's an old milestone.
Oh yeah.
My father always reckoned that when the tramps and itinerants used to head up to the Stow Lodge there,
the Workhouse, yeah.
The Workhouse, if they got any pennies or any little bits of value, they used to leave them within a little area around that, because otherwise they'd have their pockets emptied.
Today I'm walking up to the Paupers Graves behind the old workhouse in Stowmarket. And the workhouse still stands, but today it's private accommodation. The back of the workhouse, it's a very tranquil place. It's the burial ground for people who died in the workhouse. It's what spiritual people would call a thin place or a thin space, where the veil between this world and the next world is very thin. So if you're local, you might be wondering why I've come down to near the Cedars Hotel, near the paint factory here, to start a walk about the Paupers Graves. Well, our story begins at a milestone, but the milestone we're going to, where the story really starts, is you can't really see the writing on it. But about 8 years ago, I filmed a milestone that was very clear down here. So I was thinking I'll come down here, start the walk at the milestone, and can see what it would have looked like. And I wanted to start a milestone because of something the late Steve Williams said to me before he died. So Steve Williams was the chairman of the Stowmarket Local History Group, and he had sort of encyclopedic knowledge about this area, and he told me a story of how when the sort of vagrants would walk up to the workhouse, if they had any spare change or anything of value, they'd hide it near the milestone on the Fimber Road that I'm going to walk to, and then we'll walk up to the workhouse and the Paupers Graves.
A little way away down there, that way, there's an old milestone.
Oh yes, yeah.
And that's listed in the archaeological thing as being sort of post-medieval, but that's still pretty old.
Yeah.
And my father always reckoned that when the tramps and itinerants used to head up to the Stow Lodge there,
The Workhouse, yeah.
The Workhouse, if they got any pennies or any little bits of value, they used to leave them within a little area around that, because otherwise they'd have their pockets emptied, and if they got even a halfpenny, they'd have to go into the fund. So they'd always, and so they'd probably have short little stays up there, and then they'd come down and find anything that they'd left down by the.
Interesting. So I wonder if there's any left.
Well, I don't know, and if they'd got any sense, that wouldn't be immediately round, but they'd be sort of like 3 paces to this. Or something like that, but that's always intrigued me.
As we walk up to the workhouse, I'll be thinking about people like the vagrant that Steve Williams spoke about, or his dad spoke about. Think about all the people that ended up there. Some of them didn't just stay for winter, It was their whole life. And the Paupers Graves could have really been a place that was forgotten, and it was for quite a long time, until a little group of people decided to do something about it. And in particular, Ray Taylor, who leads a group of volunteers that look after the Paupers Graves.
Started in 1999 when Onehouse Parish Council asked the parish councillors an idea for the millennium, a project for the millennium. So I came home and spoke to my wife, and as we always walked round here and looked at the place, and it was in such a horrific state and like a jungle, and said, shall we see if they can buy it? So I went back to the next meeting and suggested that, and they thought it was a brilliant idea, and so they put the wheels in motion to purchase it. But they didn't know who owned it. They wrote to Suffolk County Council and they didn't own it. They wrote to the Health Authority and they knew nothing about it, and so they decided to write to the government. And events 3 months later, we got a letter back from the Home Office to say that they owned it, and they offered it to us for £1. And so Onehouse Parish Council wrote a cheque for £1 to the Home Office. We then started to look after it. In early 2000, we had a little work party. Used to meet once a month on a Sunday morning to start to clear it. It then realised that wasn't enough, and so we formed a team and got it to what the state we're in now.
Once the land was purchased by Onehouse Council, Ray Taylor and his team that gathered began clearing the area and giving those buried there some dignity and some respect. I spent a couple of mornings up there with the volunteers, and flipping heck, I'm blown away. They're all, virtually all a lot older than I am, by a decade in some cases, but they're all busy sort of maintaining the area every fortnight. I was just blown away, and listening to some of their personal stories, recovering from strokes and Lord alone knows what else. Things, I think, would I have just given up and stayed at home? But these guys, their camaraderie, obviously we can't have all their conversations on camera, but yeah, the comedy is great. But yeah, full respect to the workers. I think I'd describe their activities on the Fridays as comedy, cake and conservation.
Later on, we had a researcher. She contacted me and said she was doing a research on why paupers had to be buried in unconsecrated land. And she said, could I come and look? And she came, had a look around and thought the place was wonderful.
So I was doing a master's degree at University of Strathclyde, and I needed a research project for my dissertation. And I've always been interested in social history and poverty. I was looking at two pauper burial grounds, one in Nacton and, originally I was just looking at the one in Nacton, and I'd been in touch with the vicar there. She actually had left Nacton and come to Onehouse and told me about the pauper burial ground here. And so that's why I decided to come along and visit this one. So that's when I met a few of the parish councillors, and they'd been trying for quite a long time to find some of the names of the people buried here. Unfortunately, a lot of the records have been destroyed. So I felt compelled to try to help because they'd been looking for a long time. I was really inspired by them because they put a lot of effort into making the area around here a peaceful place. So I decided to use both the Nacton burial ground and the Onehouse burial ground as a comparison, and I studied both of them for 3 years. And that's when I went to the archives in Ipswich and I found a register which was dated from 1813 to 1834. And in there I found 302 names of the people that were buried here. After going through, it took a while to go through the register, but found the names, and then I started to research the actual people that were buried here, which was quite an experience in itself because these people were buried before civil registration, so there were no birth or death certificates or census entries. It was just parish records.
Julie found 302 names of people being buried there between, I think it's about early 1800s to 1830, and so we then set to get a memorial. It was decided that we'd have a memorial, and so I wrote to all the parish district councillors and county councillors and parish councils, and within 3 weeks I'd got £6,800. Some were very generous and some not so generous, but I got £6,800. I got Spencer Wicks, the monumental people at Rendlesham. He came and did this wonderful memorial. I got a local builder who came and built it with an engineering brick so that it could be washed down, and it was opened 2 years ago. We had an opening ceremony, and it has now got to what it is. It is, in theological terms, it's what's called a thin place. A place where heaven and earth touches, nearly touches. And everybody is mesmerised by the place. People come and sit here. It's a tranquil little spot where people can come and meditate and think about their worries.
And then we've got the Disney family here. We've got Maria Disney, who was 21, William Disney, and there's 2 Sarah Disneys and a John Disney. And Maria Disney was actually sent to the workhouse because she had refused to go into service. There was three women, Maria Disney was one of them, and she'd been sent to the workhouse as a punishment for refusing to go into service. Her mother was Sarah Disney and her father William Disney. William Disney can be found in the newspapers for vagrancy. Unfortunately, he was found guilty of stealing several times. Sarah Disney, you find her, I found an actual settlement certificate for her. She tried to go back to Ipswich, which was the parish where she originally came from. But the way that settlement worked is that she needed to come back to the parish of her husband, which was Onehouse. So the whole family are buried here.
Along here, there's a milestone. Can we find it? In the undergrowth. Yes, here we are. So yeah, this is the milestone that Steve Williams' dad was talking about. So the story is that they'd sort of bury the pennies or any valuables somewhere there so they could find it. I'm going to walk down here and show you where they would have crossed to the footpath up to the workhouse. Now you might be thinking, is the story that Steve Williams was told, was that something his dad just made up? Well, when I was filming the interviews with Ray Taylor, talked about a lot of stuff obviously, but after we'd finished filming off camera and I put everything away, I told him the story about this, leaving, a few pennies there by the milestone, and he was telling me that he'd been digging up near because he lives up near the workhouse, he'd been digging on a field there and I found a little pouch with 2 very old coins in, and they turned out to be 2p pieces, not the 2p pieces we have now, because we have 2p pieces, don't we? These were 2d pieces, which I didn't even know exist, but they're actually from the 1700s. Anyway, he got them checked out. I think he said they're in Ipswich Museum, so I had a look online. I mean, anyone that knows about coins can correct me in the comments, but I think it's these sort of coins. This is what Ray Taylor found up near the workhouse in a little pouch, which is kind of very like what someone who's hiding some stuff in the workhouse would have done. Now the crossing to the footpath up to the workhouse, it's either in them bushes over there or it's been completely obliterated by the housing development. Let's just cross and have a look. Unfortunately the footpath is blocked off while they're building these houses at the moment. I'm sure it was just along this hedge somewhere. Oh yeah, it's been completely destroyed. I think it was sort of in this area. Now a big drainage ditch, another bit of history lost. However, by the wonders of time travel, here's one I prepared earlier of me walking up the old footpath.
Yeah, it would always be a workhouse master and his wife to run the workhouse. You'd have other staff as well. You'd have a nurse, you'd have a visiting doctor, because workhouses weren't just somewhere for the poor to go. They were hospitals, they were orphanages, they were foster care, old people's homes. They were even used as alternatives to prisons. So, you know, for crimes which weren't as harsh. You definitely have people with disabilities and mental health issues, because workhouses, having a place in a workhouse was cheaper than being placed in an asylum.
So what awaited this man of the road when he got up there to the workhouse? Let's be honest, that wouldn't be, he wouldn't be in for an afternoon nap, would he really? He only got to lie down at night time, and then you had to lie down at night time. And the way they work people up at the workhouse, particularly men, but everyone really, yeah, you'd be glad to lie down. Or would you be glad to lie down? I recently went over to a workhouse museum in Norfolk and got the chance to lie down on a workhouse bed. Now, as I lay down, you know, you think in desperate situations, yeah, you might survive in a bed like that for a few months. But then I read the little plaque near the bed, which informed me that it was 2 to a bed. So this little frame I was lying on was actually for 2 people. Now, even given my slim sylph-like body, that would have been a bit of a push to get 2 people on there. And you want to be sharing with someone that snored loudly. And I don't think anyone was using deodorant in these places. I'm not sure anyone was using deodorant in them days. But yes, would not have been pleasant.
And then we have Robert Sparrow, who was from Buxall. He came from quite a decent family. His father was a bricklayer, and they worked hard, but his mother died. And after his mother died, the family really fell apart. So his mother had died 2 years previous, and Robert was here on his own and buried on his own. His father and the rest of his siblings are all buried in Anglican churches. But what I believe happened to Robert was that he was here because he wasn't well, or he was here because he was apprenticed out and was taken ill and buried. So it's really sad he was in the ground here alone, where none of his family are.
And the reason why they couldn't be buried in consecrated land, because Victorian thinking was that if you had no money, then you couldn't be a Christian, and you had to be a Christian to be buried in a churchyard that is consecrated land. And they were buried, and the term is outside the wall. And there's one or two little village churchyards have still got burial plots outside the wall. And but they came here because it's unconsecrated. We then got it looking like this, and people suggested that we should get it consecrated. And so I'm involved with the church a lot, and I actually knew the archdeacon, and I got him down here, and he had a look around, and he said, Ray, he says, the best thing you can do is to leave it as it is. He says, because if you get the church involved, he says, that will give you more complications than it's worth knowing. He says, because it will be a faculty for everything. He says, leave it exactly how it is. He says, God still loves those there, consecrated or not consecrated. It makes no difference. And so we've left it as it is.
Families were always split up after 1834, and that was one of the major issues with workhouses and why they became cruel. You'd have women, children and adults, women, children and men separated. They'd come together on a Sunday usually, but yeah, they were always separated after 1834. Before 1834, it was quite different, and there's some of the people that I've researched here, they've been in the workhouse for 5 years and had more children, so they definitely weren't separated. You get cases where there's whole families together and they've gone in with one child and come out with 4. So
here is the old workhouse, and there's a sundial on the gable there, which I think has a Latin phrase on, which I think translates to something like, we wake, we sleep, or we rise, we fall, or we're born, we die. Anyway, here's the Latin phrase. So you Latin people, you Latin scholars, you can tell us in the comments the exact translation. Whichever one of them it is, not terribly inspiring, is it? Some people started complaining that people in the workhouse had it too easy, while farm labourers and that worked hard and weren't always sure of eating every day or a roof over their head. So instead of improving the people that are struggling in society, the farm workers and that, no, we decided to make it horrible for the people in the workhouse. Oh, it does my head in. Can't we look after each other as humans? I think the workhouse was running as a workhouse till the 1940s, certainly 1930s, 1940s. And then it became I think it was like a geriatric hospital. And then, yeah, got taken over by the health service for a bit. And then it was sold, made into private accommodation. But some of this land has sort of NHS services on, or services that the NHS use. And of course the ambulance station here. So we're coming through the new Kissing Gates. We've seen the old boys in store. Yes, when at the beginning of the video you saw them putting these posts in. So that's a new development. And there's a little, if you follow the footpath, just a little very short circular walk there. And you'll come up on this cast iron bath, as we say in Manchester, where I grew up. Yeah, so this was the, this will be from the infirmary. And there's the sort of map there. So this would be the workhouse. We've walked round the back. The infirmary is here, and the burial ground there. So yeah, it's one of the baths from the infirmary, and yeah, in recent years the boys have, you can just see the line of the outline. So this little patch here would have been the infirmary if you got sick in the workhouse, too sick to work. You were brought here, and it's a little bit disturbing that it's right next to the burial ground. And how many went back memorial is over here. And this memorial with names on is quite recent, in recent years. Last year, the year before maybe. That's fairly recent, a result of Julie's research. This cross has been here since I first came, and you'll see on it the cast iron number plates. I used to think, oh, that's a bit miserable, they didn't put your name on the cross and they buried you in the ground, they just put a number on. But you didn't even get that, you didn't get a personal number, they wouldn't have spent that much money on you. The numbers, I think they were just plots. So you'd have these like little wooden crosses like these, and that would be a plot, I don't know, for 5, 10, 20 people. You didn't even get your own number.
I mean, there would have been a lot more numbers than that, and those numbers aren't per person. They were per plot. They were, you know, sort of, I don't know, one number could have done 10 bodies. So yeah, those numbers aren't, I don't actually know what the numbers signify, whether it's a certain area, but they certainly weren't, you know, you weren't number 100. They wouldn't go to that much expense for a pauper body. The Vincent family is a really sad one. So we've got Charlotte Vincent was 23. She had children, Mary Ann, Robert, they were both children and they died. And her daughter Jemima Vincent was only 7 months. They're all here together.
Yeah, and there's an annual memorial service, I think, to give thanks for all the work that's been done, but it's to remember the people who died without anyone to bury them, so that they're buried here, and there are hundreds of people buried here.
And at least now they are recognised with their name and they've got dignity.